good evening. My name is Kevin Arrow. I'm a time-based media artist and museum professional located in Miami, Florida. I'd like to thank you for joining me this evening for the Wayne State University Time Frame Matter Hard Light program. I'm going to be reading a selection from I Seem to Be a Verb, written in 1970 by R. Buckminster Fuller. This is going to be a live reading in which I read a selection of the through text that runs through the center portion of the publication, which runs both forward and backwards. I'd like to thank Richard Haley and Felicia Carlisle for inviting me to do this presentation. And I'd like to again thank you, and I'm going to get started in approximately 5 seconds. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So to start with, I was raised in the optimistic yet dark 1960s. I still have memories as a child of Buckminster Fuller and his counterculture endorsed idealistic worldview. I remember my older brother's first edition of the Whole Earth catalog. I remember the radical Back to the Land movement, advertising Mongolian yurts and homemade yogurt and essays on the I Ching. I remember that Fuller was one of the first guests to appear on the Dick Cavett Show in 1968, and how they discussed that politicians would eventually become obsolete through technological advances. In my mind, Fuller was an elder statesman or ambassador for the hippie counterculture. Yet Fuller seemed to be born under a bad sign in 1895 in Milton, Massachusetts. He suffered more than the average person at the time. He was born with eye problems and had to wear thick Coke bottle glasses, and he was expelled from Harvard, and he was cursed by missteps in business and failed ventures, and the ultimate misfortune of having to watch his young daughter die in his arms from polio and spinal meningitis. Fuller contemplated suicide at 27, believing that his wife would benefit from his life insurance policy. But he had a mystical vision he claimed saved his life. He floated above the ground on a sphere of white light, and he heard the following: "From now on, you never need await temporal attestation for your thought. You think the truth. You do not have the right to eliminate yourself." A master of self-mythology, Fuller referred to himself as an engineer, an inventor, a mathematician, a chartographer, an architect, a philosopher, a poet, a cosmologist, a comprehensive designer, and a choreographer. In the 60s, you were able to do that. He was rarely questioned about his credentials. Much of what I thought I knew about the 60s and the 70s slowly unraveled as I got older. The age of Aquarius ended, and my counterculture superheroes, Allen Ginsberg, Abby Hoffman, Jerry Garcia, John Lennon, Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassady. Much like the Wizard of Oz, it ended, turned out there were only ordinary guys working behind a fancy curtain. Yet Fuller had no reason to self-mythologize. He was friends with Bauhaus founder Walter Gropius. He was on the faculty of the progressive Black Mountain College with Merce Cunningham and John Cage and Joseph Albers. I Seem to Be a Verb was written 51 years ago, and I believe in many ways it anticipated the development of what we know as the internet today. It functions in many ways like a search engine, if you will. And the book, they're hard to find in good condition because they were meant to be read from the front to the back and then flip it from the back to the front. So a lot of them fell apart, much like this one did. I Seem to Be a Verb, or Buckminster Fuller. Society neither hears nor sees the great changes going on. Either man is obsolete or war is. War is the ultimate tool of politics. Political leaders look out only for their own side. Politicians are always realistically maneuvering for the next election. They are obsolete as fundamental problem solvers. Half-century of subconsciously developing world revolution, crossing threshold into human consciousness and ultimate popular support. Today's students, reared by television, the third parent, think world. They think, demand justice for all humanity with no exceptions. Theirs will be the most powerful, constructive revolution in history. Earth is a very small spaceship. We are all astronauts. Each human is a whole universe. We have 28,000 pounds of explosives for each human being on Earth. Weaponry has always been accorded priority over livingry. Only two alternatives: utopia or oblivion. All the fundamental problems, or world problems, man knows so much, yet does so little. Greatest fact of the century: we can make life on Earth general success for all people. World's prime vital problem: how to triple swiftly, safely, satisfyingly, overall performance, realizations per pound kilowatts, man hours of worlds, comprehensive resources, rendering those resources capable of supporting 100% of humanity's increasing population at ever higher standards. Of living than any human minority, single individual has known or dreamed of. War, overpopulation, hunger, disease would cease to exist if haves devoted larger share of their industrial budget to world livingry. Malthus is wrong. There is enough to go around. Basic you or me, not enough for both, ergo someone must die. Tenets of class warfaring are extinct. Real wealth, indestructible, without practical limit, is a combination of physical energy and human intellect. Every time we use real wealth, it increases. Intellect must increase wealth to eliminate poverty. Design, science, invention, revolution could elevate poverty to haveness. If you can produce it, you can afford it. If you can't produce it, you can't afford it. Intelligence should be recognized as a global resource. Brain stores retrieve special case experiences. Mind discovers generalized patterns apparently governing all special case experiences. Thinking is the consciously disciplined separation of relevant feedback from irrelevant feedback. Greatest single revolution in human affairs has been ascendancy of intellects, intuitive mastery over the physical, but all the important critical events realizing that revolution just happens. Only the impossible happens. Probability unreliable. To each of us, environment is everything. That isn't me. New, physically uncompromised metaphysical initiatives of unbiased integrity should unify the world. It could probably be provided by the utterly impersonal problem solutions of man's antibody, the computer. Only to the computer's superhuman range of calculative capabilities can and may all political, scientific, religious leaders face-savingly acquiesce. Revolution is apparently intent that man fulfill a much greater destiny. Than that of being simple muscle and reflex machine. A slave automation. By 1975, China may be the most impressively modern nation, highly automated. Automation can produce wealth beyond all our needs and dreams. We've always had automation. What's happening to your lunch? Automation has made man obsolete as physical production and control specialists. Just time. Specialization is only a fancy form of slavery wherein the expert is fooled into accepting his slavery by making him feel that in return he is making himself feel that in return he is in a socially cultural preferred ergo highly secure lifelong position. Always does things in simplest, most efficient way. All nature is based on the triangle. tetrahedron, which is constructed of triangles. Nature does not have separate departments of physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. World society is operating almost exclusively in inaudible, non-visible area of physical universe. We are living in a world where change is normal, because prime evolutionary transformation are invisible. It is approximately impossible for world society to comprehend that changes in the next 30 years will be far greater than in the last 100 years. Artists are now being recognized as extraordinarily important to human society. Scientists are utterly irresponsible regarding pro versus antisocial disposition of eggs they lay in the laboratories. Every child is born a genius. 90% are de-geniused by early postnatal circumstances. Human being has great potentiality, but many wires get disconnected. Ages 0 to 4, our biggest school opportunity. Child is trim tab of the future. Least favorable environment for study is schoolroom and closely packed desk prisons. All schoolhouse is in the home and outdoors. Within 10 years, anything reasonably think-upable by science fiction will probably have been realized. Possession is becoming progressively burdensome, wasteful, obsolete. Total man may be going through a total wave of transformation into an entirely new relationship with the universe. Man, freed of special case superstition by intellect, has had survival potentials multiplied millionsfold. Man can now whisper effortlessly into one another's ear from anywhere around the world. Be sure to entertain all your emotions. Intellectual integrity will end tomorrow's battles with accelerating inexorability. Political, commercial, sham, false premise institutions will vanish with startling rapidity. Man, as designed, is obviously intended to be a success. Not a bad thing to have hanging over your head. Experiment is always valuable. You can't learn less. You can always get nearer to the truth. Language can be a block to reality. Coping with the totality of spaceship Earth and the universe is ahead for all of us. Man was designed with legs, not roots. Man can do anything he wants. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I hope you enjoyed my reading of R. Buckminster Fuller, I Seem to Be a Verb. Thank you, Wayne State University, Time Frame Matter, Hard Light, Richard Haley, Alicia Carlisle. If you'd like to reach out to me with any questions, you can do so on Instagram, m.a.smiami or @Quentin. Thank you very much for tuning in. Check their website out for some upcoming programming, and everyone, thanks a lot. Good night.